Hello, I am Dr. Rashid Ahmed from the Department of Physics of Kohat University of Science and Technology. In the subject of particle physics with the course code PHY 452, we are at the lecture number 25 and the topic is Feynman rules for scattering. In our previous lecture, we have developed the Feynman rules for decay rates, and we have seen that whenever there is a decay, that is some heavy particle decaying into lighter particles, we can construct the Feynman diagrams and then can use the Feynman rules to calculate the decay rate. In today's lecture, we will develop the similar procedure for scattering processes, where we will see that if there are scattering between different particles, then we can write down the or draw the Feynman diagram for these scattering processes, and then can use the Feynman calculus to calculate the scattering cross section. So let's start with a very simple example. In here we will also again use the toy model. That is, we will say that, for example, we have two particles, that is particle A and B, but to make things more simpler, we will also say that the similar particles are colliding. For example, particle A is colliding with the particle A, and it is producing the two particles, that is B and B. So although there are four particles involved, but there are only two types of particles, that is particle A and B. So two similar particles or two same particles, same kinds of particles collide with each other, and then they produce the same kind of other particles. As I have mentioned in my previous lecture, that in Feynman diagrams and Feynman calculus, the one thing, the most important thing is to first imagine a process. So once you conceive a process that this can happen, and then write down the process, and after writing down the process, one is able to draw the diagrams and then apply the Feynman calculus. So over here we have now conceived a process that a particle is colliding with the same kind of another particle, and after the collision they are producing particle B and the same kind of particle B. Imagine that we could also had another similar process. For example, we could have particle A colliding with a particle B, and then they producing, let's say, particle A and particle B. Or you could similarly say particle B colliding with particle B and producing particle A and particle A. So these are the similar kind of processes which we can imagine, and then we can draw the diagrams for them, the Feynman diagrams for them, and then using the Feynman calculus we can derive the scattering cross section for all these processes. But here, to make things simple and to just give you the idea of how one can use Feynman calculus for this calculation of scattering processes, I have used a simple collision where particle A is colliding with a similar kind of another particle A, and it is producing a particle B and a similar kind of particle B. Okay, so once we have wrote down this process, the next step is to draw the Feynman diagram for it. So you the first order or the lowest order Feynman diagram. As you know that the lowest order diagram would be this one. That is, this particle A is coming in, another particle A is coming in, they are colliding, and there is an internal line between them, or some kind of internal particle, but since we cannot see it, since it's all internal, so we cannot see it, so this is just a virtual particle mediating some kind of interaction. And then the particle B is outgoing, two particle B are going out. Okay, so we could also draw higher order diagrams. For example, when there are loops involved, as you can imagine, loops could be over here, or could be over here, or here, or here, or even we can have these loops or these loops. So we can make it as complicated as we want. But these are all higher order contributions which are smaller than the lowest order contribution, this first order contribution. Then we can have second order contribution, third order contribution, but at the moment we are just neglecting them. Even in the real practice, when you will be applying these rules to electrodynamics or quantum chromodynamics or to the weak force, in the most cases one goes towards only first order diagram and count them, all the contributions from them, and add them. And very few people would go for the even higher order diagram. But in today's lecture, for just to give you the message that how we can calculate the scattering from Feynman diagrams, we are considering only the lowest order contribution. Okay. So now it's time to draw the to use the Feynman calculus, because we have already drawn the Feynman diagram. So the first step in Feynman calculus is to label the lines. So in here we have you are seeing that we have labeled the lines. For example, this particle A and particle A, since they are incoming, so we have drawn these arrows and wrote down their momentum. For example, P1 for the particle A and P2 for the another particle A. So these are indistinguishable particles, A and A, but at least their momentum are different, and it could be different, P1 and P2. And we have also labeled this P3. This is the particle, outgoing particle, and it has momentum P3, and this outgoing particle P4. So since there are no internal lines involved over here, or we have not considered over here, so no loops we have considered over here, so therefore only two incoming and two outgoing particles are involved. So we have now labeled them. So once you have labeled them, the next thing is to count the vertices. How many vertices are there? So if you go back to this diagram, so you will know that there are only two vertices. This is this vertex and this vertex. So we know that for each vertex we have to write the coupling constant. So we have a minus Ig. So in this case, since we have two vertices, so we will write 2 minus Ig. For example, Ig over here, where G is the coupling constant, and minus coupling constant over here. So for this vertex we have wrote down a coupling constant, and also for this vertex we have wrote down our coupling constant. So now we have for all the vertices we have our own coupling constants, and then we move towards the next step. And the next step is that if you have an internal line, if we had one internal line, as you see here, this is our internal line. There are no loops actually, but there is one internal line. So for this internal line we have to write a propagator. So because it propagates somehow, you can imagine it propagates this reaction, this collision. So this propagator is I over q square minus mc square c square, where q as you know is the internal momentum, and this mc is the square of the mass. So this is the propagator which we have to write for every internal line. Since it involved only one internal line, so we had to write only one propagator. Okay, after mentioning this propagator, we have to also write delta function. So since we have two vertices, so we have to write two delta functions. So this is the first delta function, you can see over here. So 2 pi 4 and delta 4, this is a 4 delta function, I mean the 4 vector notation. So it has 4 components. So P1 minus P3 minus Q, and the second one is P2 plus Q minus. So you see that there are two outgoing lines, incoming lines, that is P1, one is connecting with the P3 and the other is connecting with the P2. So P1 is connecting to the P3 and P2 is connecting to the P4. If you go back to the diagram, you will see this here. So here. You can see this P1 is connecting to the P3 via the internal line Q on this vertex, because we have to enforce the law of conservation of energy and momentum on each vertex. So on this vertex you see there are three lines. One is this P1, P3 and Q, and this is so we have to label this Q. So this is P2 and P3Q. So over here you see that P1 is connecting with the P3, and this is the vertex, and this is the internal line. So we have to write out one delta function for this. This is delta 4, one delta 4 here and one delta 4 here. So therefore we have wrote two delta functions as you can see, and these delta functions, the first delta function is connecting the line P1, P3 and Q, and the other delta function is connecting the line P2, P4 and Q, because these are the lines involved there. And these two delta functions, this delta function will ensure the law of conservation of energy and momentum on the first vertex, and this will ensure the law of conservation of energy and momentum on the second vertex. So now we have already wrote the delta functions. So the next thing is to write the integration volume element. So this D4Q, because we will integrate over the Q, so this is the volume element we have to write, and then we have to integrate out this, and finally we will get the decay rate or the amplitude. Okay. So the next thing is to put everything into the integral. So now you see that we have these two delta functions, this volume element. So this is the delta functions involved here. This is the volume element involved here. This is the propagator, because propagator comes here, and this is the coupling constant. So everything we have put in here, and this was for the first delta function, or the first vertex. So we have written the integration for the first vertex, and we can also write the integration for the second vertex. Again you see okay, but for the first and second vertex we have contributions over here. This is delta function coming here, delta function here, so both of the vertices in one integral. And then we have to combine this one. This is easy to combine two delta functions. So you can see P1, P2, P3 coming in, and minus P4, so 4 momenta, and this is the G square, the coupling constant, and after some simplification we get P1 minus P2 in the down states. Okay, so once done this, next thing is to calculate the amplitude. So amplitude is you can just read off from there, that amplitude is G square P4 minus P2 MC square C square. Okay, so far so good. We have reached to the point where we have calculated our amplitude, but one thing which you would have imagined that there is a possibility of another diagram, even it is at the lowest order, but there to this process there is another possibility. As I have already told you, in Feynman calculus it is important to include all the possibilities, and if you think about this diagram, you can say that when there was incoming line P1 and it was connected to the P2, and the P3, and the P2 line was connected to the P4. Okay, but one can think, why not P1 is connected to the P4 and P2 is connected to the P3? Okay, so somehow we call it a twisted diagram, in which we make a twisting of line B. That is, before the line B was connected over here, and the another line B was connected over here, and it was P3 and it was P4. But now we are saying that why not this P1 is not connected to P3, but it is connected to the P4, and similarly P2 then is not connected to the P4, but it is connected to the P3. So it is a twisted diagram, but it will also have its own contribution. So we have to consider this, and we also do again all the Feynman rules and calculate the amplitude out of it. But since we have already done a practice and we have calculated the amplitude from the first diagram, so nothing is changed, the rules are not changed, just the same thing, instead just P3 is replaced with a P4. So these P3 and P4 are swapped. So what we can do that at the end, the amplitude which we have calculated for the first diagram, we can just write down this again and add it up there. But the only difference is that, for example, in the first case we had P4 minus P2 square, so now we will have P3 minus P2 square. So that's the only difference, where we will exchange P3 with a P4. Otherwise this is the same contribution, same type of diagram. So now the total amplitude, as you can see, M is the contribution from the first diagram. So this is the contribution for the from the first diagram contribution, and this is from the second diagram contribution. And if we would have other processes involved, then we have to calculate their contributions as well, and at the end the total amplitude will be the sum of all the possibilities. So one cannot neglect any of them, and this was also one of the sources of the infinities, that if we have many processes involved or many diagrams involved, then this integration is divergent. But at the moment we say that there are only two diagrams involved, and it's easy to calculate their contribution. Okay, so this was a total amplitude. So after this we go towards our purpose, that we wanted to calculate the cross section, but we want to do this in a center of mass frame of reference. If you go to the center of mass frame of reference, you see that for simplicity we say that MA and MB, the mass of the particle A and the mass of the particle B is equal. That is these two particles which we had our collision, their masses are equal and equal to M. Then and MC is equal to 0. This is just for the simplicity to give you the idea that how things get simplified when we go to the center of mass frame of reference. So in this frame of reference, as you see in the diagram, that this is the before collision. We had particle A coming in, and this is P1 and P2, and this is the center of mass where they are colliding, and this is the after collision when particle B are produced. So this is the particle B going out with the momentum P4, and this is particle B going out with the momentum P3, and this is the angle with this initial configuration. So we had particle A's, so their momenta, particle, one of the particle A was coming with the momentum P1, another particle A was coming with the momentum P2, and they were colliding. And after the collision, the particle two B particles were produced, and this particle B is going out with the momentum P4, and this B particle is also going out with the momentum P3, making an angle theta with each other. Okay, this was in the center of mass frame of reference, and now we can make these simple calculations over here. For example, P4 minus P2 minus MC square can be calculated simply in the center of mass frame of reference, like P4 square, and I mean if you open this square and do this calculation, you can write it down in this form. And similarly the other factor P3 minus P2 in the this frame of reference, in the center of mass frame of reference, can also be put, so you can just make the simple calculation again over here, and you can put this one into this simple form. So in center of mass, you see that these quantities are calculated very easily, and if we put them in the amplitude, then it will become equal to minus g square p square by sine square theta, and at the end, if we calculate the differential cross section, that will be equal to this. So in today's lecture, what we have seen is the Feynman calculus developed for the scattering process, and we have considered the simple case of a toy theory where we had two similar kind of particles, that is particle A, and they were colliding with each other and producing another particle, but they were also of the similar kind, that is particle B. And what we have done then, we have draw the Feynman diagrams for them, and then we have wrote down all the Feynman calculus steps, and at the end we were able to calculate the amplitude. But then we had made a simplification, and we went to the center of mass frame of reference and calculated some quantities there, and at the end we were able to calculate the amplitude. And if we put this amplitude into the scattering cross section, and we calculate easily the scattering cross section. With this, I say thank you to